For women, our arousal period actually takes about 30 to 45 minutes for optimal pleasure and orgasm. And that's because men and women have the same tissues, genital tissues, but because men's are more externally located and women's are more internally located, it does cause an effect of difference in arousal cycles. So if we're going into sex and we're going straight into penetration, or we're going straight to touch the genitals, the vulva is not ready for that yet.
Why aren't women having enough orgasms?
Oh God. That is such a loaded question in such a good and terrible way. So I get a lot of women who come to work with me in my private practice and in my online courses, telling me that they struggle with orgasm, that they either have never experienced an orgasm before, or they experience it but rarely, or they experience it with their own self-pleasure, but they can't experience it with their partner. So there are so many layers that we have to deconstruct around sex and around the way that our bodies work, because in our culture, we have been given a male-oriented idea of what sex is, meaning that the stages of arousal are very linear. So for men, the way that their bodies operate is from arousal to plateau to orgasm to rest period. Women, our cycles of arousal is actually more circular, and there's a bunch of little squiggly lines that go out there because we're a lot more sensitive to context and factors of context. So it's having to reconstruct or redefine what sex is and how sex works. For women, our arousal period actually takes about 30 to 45 minutes for optimal pleasure and orgasm. And that's because men and women have the same tissues, genital tissues, but because men's are more externally located and women's are more internally located, it does cause an effect of difference in arousal cycles. So if we're going into sex and we're going straight into penetration, or we're going straight to touch the genitals, the vulva is not ready for that yet. She needs a lot more warming up. She needs touch around the entire body, breathing, kissing, moving the body. And then in those 30 minutes, and again, this is optimal. I'm not saying you have to do this every time, because quickies are great. But for this optimal experience, in order towards the tissues to engorge, the blood to flow through, the lubrication to happen, it takes that long. And so we're rushing through this. We're going straight to penetration. We're pushing something in, whether it's a hand, a finger, or a cock, and we're telling our bodies, we're overriding our bodies, expecting them to go faster than what they naturally are supposed to be doing. And so, of course, we're going to have trouble. We're not ready yet. This also perpetuates women having difficult time with pain in sex. Again, their vulvas just aren't ready yet. So teaching women about how their bodies, and men, and this is inclusive for trans and non-binary as well, but really teaching us about the anatomy of our body, teaching us also about how to tune into the cues of the body. Like the body's always talking to us. We may light up and expand and feel fluttery feelings around a specific context, and then we feel a shutdown or a close, or we pull away to another context. But again, if we are comparing ourselves to this image that we see in movies or we see in articles about what's a socially constructed idea of sex, and we're comparing that to the way that our body actually is, and the way that our body actually needs, the authenticity of it, then we're going to hit up against this dissonance and only perpetuate the challenges that we experience. Same with men too. Men might experience difficulty with erections, or with orgasm for themselves, and then we are still putting this image of sex, this definition of sex as penetration focused, genital focused to men too. And then what happens if there's a contextual factor or something going on that for whatever reason their cock isn't able to become erect, then they start shaming themselves or saying that they're broken, something's wrong with them. Same with vulva owners too. And we get in this cycle again of this comparison rather than really learning about the body and actually being in the body. We end up in our head and we end up, strategizing and trying to figure it out. But really, it's just, relaxing, opening. And that's another piece too, because our culture is also very fixated on accomplishment and doing and productivity. And so it can cause us to be, to rush or to pressure ourselves to chase after an orgasm or to do something. To be the best lover. I think many of us have insecurities where we feel like we're not enough as a lover, or we're not enough in the bedroom, and we're scared that we're not going to be able to pleasure them to the point of orgasm, as if it's some pinnacle of successful sex. But when we chase after it, we end up making it more elusive, because again, that's a very heady space to be. And we end up contracting it into the body rather than relaxing. And orgasm needs the body to be able to relax. Orgasm in and of itself is a contraction, or at least the physical aspect of orgasm. And I'll explain that in a moment. But if the body is already in a state of contraction, then it has more of a difficult time to be able to have that, tense and release expression of it. Same with, I have so many women who don't even realize how much they're clenching on their pelvic floor. So there's a lot of tension built up in the muscles of the pelvic floor that make it difficult for them to be able to have orgasm too. So for those women, it's teaching them a lot about relaxation, a lot of breath work, and I guess really this goes with men and cock owners too, that this is really a beyond gender inclusive cultural issue that we're having.
Across the board.
Across the board, yeah.
And would you say the number one reason why is because it's perpetuated by the way porn teaches us? Is that the visual direction that we're all taking as to sex should be performed quickly with this endpoint in mind? Anything less than is a failure.
So I would say, and porn is a whole nother topic, but porn itself, I would say male-oriented type of porn, but there is also a lot of ethical porn, a lot of ethical feminist porn directors who've made it where these are real orgasms, where there is warm up. And I specifically use the word warm up, and I specifically use the word play, because I don't like the word foreplay. Foreplay indicates that it's preceding something. And preceding what? And usually it's this culturally constructed idea that sex equals penetration.
Right.
So I'm trying to teach, get away from that. Let's be more inclusive of sexual activity. It can be moving bodies. It can be breathing. It can be, moving energy through you. It could be making out, touching bodies, heavy petting. It can be role play. It can be bondage. It can be talking fantasies. It can be so much, and we've narrowed it to this very small image of what it is, but we don't realize how we've excluded trans people who may not want to connect with their genitals. We've excluded lesbians who don't necessarily penetrate. We've excluded so many people of the population, saying you're not actually having sex. And so imagine how that impacts our minds. Yeah. So feminist porn, ethical porn includes those concepts so that when we're seeing those, we're given perspectives, and we're given reference points of how sex could be more than just that male-oriented porn image that we did grow up with. We did grow up with the Wi-Fi, do we get a Wi-Fi? Internet.
Yeah.
We had the internet, and we had videos, and we had magazines, and so, but a lot of that was created through the male lens. And so I don't want to demonize porn as much as I do want to educate it and teach people how to be conscious consumers rather than reject, demonize, and say you can't have that. Because when we do that, we actually create even more power around it and a lot more of a struggle to find a healthier relationship with porn.
Hey everyone, I want to talk about Birch Living. This is a partner that we've been with for quite a while now. Almost every single Heal Thyself show, I mention Birch because sleep, a pillar of health, so important for our overall health that we get deep, rejuvenative sleep, all right? So I want to talk about Birch, premium mattress in the box company. They make a mattress and sleep products that are stylish, comfortable, and environmentally conscious. They have organic, non-toxic mattresses that are made right here in the US. And it was important for me to choose a Birch mattress that is made organic with natural materials because I can sleep comfortably, knowing that our beds are the #1 place in the home that have to be the highest quality and not off-gassing nasty chemicals throughout the night. Birch doesn't do that. Birch mattresses are Green Guard Gold certified. That means they're testing for over 10,000 different chemicals that we're not breathing in throughout the night. I've had my Birch natural mattress for close to a year now. I love it. What I love is how breathable it is, keeping me cool at night, relieves pressure points like I'm on a cloud, allergen, mildew resistant, none of those nasty chemicals that I'm breathing in, and all raw materials straight from nature. So with the Birch mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial and a 25-year warranty. So if it makes you nervous to buy something you ain't tried yet, you get 3 months. Make sure you love it. If you don't, they're gonna come pick it up, you get a full refund. The best thing is that they'll deliver right to your door free within the United States. It comes rolled up in a box, super easy to set up for yourself. I love my Birch mattress. I do think you will too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Birch. You can click on the link below or go to birchliving.com/healthyself. You can get $400 off your mattress and 2 free pillows. Over 75% of us are not taking in enough magnesium. It is essential for all bodily processes. Every single thing that you're doing in your body requires magnesium. So we need to make sure we're getting enough. Now we eat nutritious food, but sometimes that's not enough. I take Ned's Mellow Magnesium. It's super impactful. Mellow Magnesium is a powerful daily magnesium supplement, and it has amino acids and trace minerals. They're all bunched together to help you get the optimum benefit of the magnesium. Taking Mellow helps me reach my goals I've set up for myself because noticeably what I'm seeing is better memory, especially when I'm doing consistently, better mood for sure, brain function, stress response, nerve and muscle health, and better sleep, especially the night one. Sleeping better from Ned, that's the little purple one. I mix it up, put it in water, and drink it. It's effervescent. I drink it before bed as like a little late night treat, but it's really helpful at getting me into deep sleep. It's been a game changer. I wake up feeling well rested, and I can go about my day on and on, task after task, and feeling well rested. Ned's products are full of premium CBD and full spectrum of active cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, and trichomes. Their full spectrum hemp oil nourishes the body's endocannabinoid system, which is inherent in all of us. Right? We have receptors for cannabinoids throughout and offers functional support for stress, sleep, inflammation, and overall balance. They get all of their goods, USDA certified organic hemp in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. They're super transparent. Go on the website, all third-party tested, who farms their products, their extraction process, for you to know that you're getting high quality. Become the best version of yourself. Get 15% off of Ned's products with the code DRG. Go to helloned.com/DRG and enter the code DRG at checkout. That's HELLONED.com/DRG. You're going to get 15% off. Thank you, Ned, as always, for sponsoring the show and giving our listeners a natural remedy for some of life's most common health issues. Hearing this, then, I think about a couple. And let's say, for example, we have a woman and her partner is a man in this example, and she's listening to what you're saying. She goes, "This resonates. I knew it. You know, I'm ready to talk to my partner, but maybe the likelihood is the partner may not be fully open right? Because we're so stuck, us men, in our paradigm of like, no, 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 no. I have found my formula to sex. I mean, my woman has an orgasm, I think, you know, and everything
true,
feels good. And no, this is what I'm used to, and I don't want to learn anything new. Do you find that resistance coming from men usually?
Absolutely, and I see it across the board again, to be gender inclusive, because we all have some of these insecurities around not being a good lover, or not being able to get them off, or not being able to, and you know, fill in the blank. You know, I'm not enough in name anything in the world.
Yeah.
So bringing up these conversations, sex is one of the top 5 most challenging conversations, most vulnerable conversations to have in a coupledom. And so remembering, I think that's really important for us to, when we're going into those conversations, to remember there may be vulnerability around this. So I always encourage my couples to approach with starting with an appreciation, acknowledging one way that you love about them as a lover. One thing that they're doing that really turns you on, or one thing that they're doing that makes you feel desired. And then going into, I would love to continue to expand our sexual potential. So it's not framing it around something's wrong. It's inviting more of a solution-focused approach. I want to expand.
Solution.
I want to discover who we are as sexual beings. I want to transcend our sex. You know, and framing it like that, or even using this podcast as a third-party object to initiate a conversation and be like, damn, Dr. Kat and Dr. G were talking about this, and it is so interesting. What do you think, you know? And yeah.
Maybe we can explore.
Yeah, so that can take the pressure off of you of, you know, the vulnerability of bringing that up, or the other person feeling attacked or cornered, or questioned in their abilities.
I've noticed that in relationships, right? Because through my life, the way that I saw sex was the way that porn would tell me to do sex, especially all throughout my 20s, and all my experiences were like that. Until I felt so inauthentic, and I didn't know what to do because I didn't have alcohol in me. And alcohol was the easiest thing to make me forget what my body wants. Right? So I was fully focused on like, okay, no, this is how I gotta do it, right? Like I'm a man and I'm doing this and this is how we, you know. And I couldn't believe how uncomfortable I felt when I was like one of the first times really sober. And learning through the years that maybe I have a lot more qualities of the feminine, because like I need to warm up, man. I really need like a nice setting, lights, you know, like maybe some music is a big plus, right? Something to make me feel like I'm in an ethereal realm, right?
I love that.
Right? Where like I'm like, whoa, like this is an experience. This is like sacred. And for me, I can't fast, like rapid. I can't just do it. Like I have to be really like my body has to open up. And then I'm good. Right? Then I'm open to whatever, but it takes a while. Have you ever noticed men talk like this? Because am I the only man in the world who, because I feel like I am. I haven't related to anyone.
I just want to highlight, I feel like hashtag Dr. G's ethereal sex life.
Ethereal sex life. I'm in the cosmos doing like mudras in the air.
Fucking love that. So all of our bodies speak a very different language. And even when we go into a relationship, a lot of times we assume, again, this culturally constructed idea of sex. And so our sex may start to look like that with our new partner. And then we assume that they have the same meaning, the same script, the same desires around that their bodies speak that same language too. But then as we progress and deepen into the relationship, we may start feeling dissatisfied. This is when a lot of couples come to see me, because they feel like one person has a lower sex drive than the other person, or they feel like they're not a match for each other, that they're sexually incompatible. And I actually don't believe in sexual incompatibility. I believe in incompatibility when one person isn't as open-minded. And we don't want to shame that person. There could be so many reasons why that's the case, and it may be protecting them. But if we understand that we're all individual humans, of course we're going to have individual desires. And if we are speaking different languages that are just natural and authentic to us, then sometimes we might realize that. It's almost like I speak French and you speak Spanish, and we try to have a dialogue and it doesn't quite land. I might be able to pick up a few things, but not in a way that would be satisfying to me. So there's an incredible sex researcher, her name is Jaya, and she took this concept and broke up these different languages, so to say, into what she calls the 5 erotic blueprints. And so these blueprints help us to be able to organize and identify with what might be more natural to us so that we have a starting point. And from that starting point, we will have more language to express what it is that we want. I mean, that's one of the hardest questions for anybody to answer. I know so many people who struggle with or will short circuit or freeze when I'm like, their partner is like, well, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know. It's like somebody asking you which restaurant you want to go to, and you just freeze. And we're like, I don't know. Don't give me that responsibility. But it also leaves us deeply unsatisfied. So these 5 erotic blueprints, one is sexual, and that's the culturally constructed idea of sex, more genital focused, orgasm focused, more easily aroused. Sensual, which is somebody who needs more of that buildup, like the longer buildup, the more play, the more touch. Massages are really awesome. Anything that activates their senses, ambiance, music, candles. And they have a more difficult time with being in their body. They oftentimes get stuck in their head, so they need their partner to be able to help them to, get grounded in here. Energetic is somebody who's more attuned to the subtle energies in the body. So anticipation and teasing and hovering and the flutters of energy or shivering in their body, they tend to be drawn towards Tantra. The challenge with them is that if you touch their genitals too quickly, then they short circuit, or they completely lose their erection, or they lose their turn on. Then there's kink, and kink is more oriented to everything that's more fringe around sex, typically not the cultural norm around what we see of sex. This can be role play, this can be BDSM, bondage, power play, dominance, submission, discipline, that kind of thing. And then the last one is shapeshifter. And so that's somebody who has more equal parts of all of those. And they can take on the different languages. However, the shadow aspect of that is that sometimes they don't ask for what they want because they're just matching the other person where they're at.
That was one of the most incredible things that I learned about.
Yeah.
But hearing you talk about the shadow side is so insightful because, we read about it and we're like, oh, yes, this one is me. Wait a minute, there's a shadow side.
Yeah.
And hearing about the communication difficulties or, how we can accept maybe these parts of us. I took this test,
Oh.
And I was only energetic and sensual.
Yeah, shocker.
And I had 0% kink, sexual shapeshifter. My partner had small shapeshifter, mostly sexual, and mostly kink.
Yeah.
So imagine, we're trying to meet in this energetic, ethereal Christian, and I completely know exactly what you're talking about. Too soon, too quick, it's a shutdown component in my body. It's like, nope, done,
Yeah.
But trying to meet someone who is in more the genital focus is interesting because you're like, how do we meet in this cultural norm versus ethereal floaty man? But you make it work.
You can. And so when you know that, it's almost like now you have a toolbox. And then we can do what's called stacking, which is infusing these together. So then I'll identify who tends to be the more sensitive to contextual breaks. And we start with that person and we start bringing in more things to feed their erotic blueprint first, and then to be able to bring in the other person's. Because when somebody is in a higher state of arousal, there tends to be more of a receptivity to things that wouldn't necessarily be their their typical blueprint or their typical just desire, in their own erotic map for whatever that can be. And what helps about this, I really want to emphasize, we see movies and we see things like, there was a Netflix show called Sex Life, and it was like the hottest sex ever.
Oh, I was on the plane, my girlfriend saw it, and she was like, I love this scene. And I was like,
I'm so turned on right now.
I was right next to me on the plane, and I could see her eyes. She's like, I love this. And I was like, I don't like that. I don't like it too much, But go ahead, sorry, I know the scene you're talking about.
But those are important conversations to have. What we don't see is that we see these movies, and it's usually straight into sex. But they don't ever have a conversation before they get into the bedroom about what they like, what their boundaries are, what turns them off, what they need, what they're afraid of. And so it's not fair for us to compare our sex lives to that, when that's not, they're missing a whole critical step in real sex. And when we can stop and slow down and have these conversations first, we can empower ourselves to create the context that, facilitates the best sex for us.
Which we need more of, everyone, because it changes the dynamic of your own health.
Yeah.
So we often hear that the average adult needs to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. It's not always possible. More and more, we are faced and forced to make a lifestyle change to get deeper sleep. The good news is that research also shows that quality matters just as much as quantity. So how exactly do we get deep sleep, and how do we achieve this? The first half of your night is the deep sleep window. That's when things start to drop, right? Your heart rate, you feel yourself getting calmer, more relaxed, your breathing slows down, especially right before you fall asleep, blood pressure, your muscle activity, and your body temperature. Now, really important, temperature is a crucial aspect to deep sleep. Finding ways to activate that sleep switch can help you increase your levels of deep sleep. This is where Chili Sleep comes in. One of my favorite devices that I have in the whole house. It has been really a game changer for my sleep. I love it. What they do is make customizable climate-controlled sleep solutions that help you improve your entire well-being. They make the Dock Pro, the Uller, and the Cube systems. These are hydro-powered, temperature-controlled mattress toppers, right? They fit over your existing mattress, and they help provide the ideal sleep temperature. Luxury mattress pads keep your bed at a perfect temperature for deep sleep. Whether you sleep hot or cold, you can control it, right? So you're always at the perfect temperature. You're not sweating, you're not overheating, or you're not getting too cold. These sleep systems are designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, so you wake up in the morning feeling refreshed. So head over to chilisleep.com/DRG. You're gonna get 30% off the purchase of any new sleep system. And it's only available to you Heal Thyself listeners for a limited time. Again, that's Chili, CHILI, sleep.com/DRG to take advantage of the exclusive discount and wake up feeling good, refreshed, and alive every day. Element is a taste electrolyte drink with everything you need and nothing you don't. That means a lot of salt, no sugar. Now, it contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio. This ratio is very important. 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium. Right? And this is the optimal ratio to really start hydrating our cells. It contains none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, none of that BS, right? And it's formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and perfectly suited for whatever diet you follow. It's super important to replenish electrolytes. We know this, right? We feel dehydrated, our muscles are contracted, our breathing is more shallow, we have headaches, we have mood changes, we're exhausted, our mouth is dry, we're tired. We're dehydrated. The moment we feel dehydrated, we're dehydrated for hours before that. So we have to think about electrolytes, bringing them into our life because they're facilitating hundreds of important functions in the body, including conduction of nerve impulses, hormonal regulation, helping with nutrient absorption, and fluid balance. Element can help prevent headaches, muscle cramps, fatigue, sleeplessness. I know you feel oftentimes without knowing the root cause. It could just be an electrolyte deficiency. Especially if you're sweating. All the athletes out there, if you're sweating, if you're getting into a sauna, if you're just moving and working out and sweating, you're gonna lose electrolytes. Athletes can lose up to 7 grams of electrolytes per day in sodium. Element is formulated for all people, not just athletes. And everyone needs to replenish their electrolytes. The way I utilize Element is I'll fill up my 64-ounce water, I'll put in a whole packet, drink it throughout the day, and then when I go to the sauna, I'll do it again and make sure I'm replenishing myself more those days. So right now, Element is offering you, the Heal Thyself listeners, a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single-serving packs, free with any Element order. It's a great way for you to figure out which flavor you want and like the most. So get yours at drinkelement.com/DRG. The deal is only available through this link. You must go to drinkelement.com/DRG. They'll give you no questions asked refunds if you don't like it, totally risk-free. But I have a feeling you will like it, especially if your electrolytes are replenished. So many of us are dehydrated. You might find this is an awesome solution for you. We are grossly undernourished in our sex lives, and largely because of the taboo of just really empowering ourselves to be sexually aligned enough to say, I feel this, I want this, I need this, I love your partner, let's meet in the middle. And how often are you seeing that in men and women, like really not being able to speak what they want or even get in touch with what they want? And if so, how do we start getting in touch with our body and what our body's calling for?
Yeah, and that's layers too. And I keep bringing this back into the culture because the culture forms a lot of how we understand how to function in life. You know, our family of origin and culture, you know, these are the things that create our internal landscape of how to make sense and operate in the world. So for women as a cultural norm, many of us have been taught to suppress our needs, to not speak up for what it is that we want, to put other people before our own. And I grew up in rural town, Missouri with, you know, a Catholic upbringing. And so it was really emphasized, put other people before yourself. Yep. And so that trained me to anticipate other people's needs. But I wasn't tuning into the stomach issues that caused, you know, the anxiety that perpetuated, even the numbness that I ended up having as a result of trying to manage these feelings, the dissonance of the feelings, this rule, and what was really going on for me. And so for many people, they also don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. If I ask for what it is I want, is that going to make them feel like they're a bad lover? Or if I ask for what it is that I want, do I deserve it? Or is this going to risk the loss of that person because they're going to say no, they're not going to want this, they're not going to want to step up and meet me in this place. So it's easier for me to self-sacrifice than it is to risk putting this out there that I want this.
And hearing that your time and growing up in Missouri and how you became blocked from your authenticity, right? Like putting people first. And I mean, like, I think that is one of the things, the plights of many women out there is not being able to truly authentically speak their truth, aside from just sexually. I mean, I've done so many emotional releases as of late, and I'm working with women, and the number one thing I see is a disconnect in their throat, in their voice, and hearing themselves, hearing the power of their voice. And a lot of women have a really contracted, like tight, dense energy in their womb. And they're so disconnected from their sexual power, right? That is right where sexuality is. And it's funny, they'll breathe and they'll do these exercises and it'll become activated. They're like, I don't know, I feel tingling in my womb. And that goes up to the stomach, to the chest, and then it's so connected to the throat. And women lost so much of their power in their voice. So I can imagine how that translates to speaking your truth on sex.
Oh my God, so much. And the somatic impact of that too. You know, for so many of us, again, because of these messages and these beliefs, many of us clench in our stomach, or we suck our bellies in to be a specific body figure or whatever, or we're wearing all these really tight clothes that actually cause restriction. And so we don't realize how much we're clenching, how much the fascia is rigidifying around that and making it difficult for us to be able to breathe into our bellies or breathe into our pelvic floor or relax the pelvic floor. If we're anxious, we're a lot of times pulling up on that pelvic floor, we're clenching there. So, there's that, and then this busy lifestyle and this, overproductivity, this pressure to produce, causes us to move really fast and go, go, go. And I see a lot of women end up having autoimmune issues, especially Hashimoto's. And so I like to look at how all of these are interrelated. Hashimoto's has to do with your thyroid and hormones, and how is that? I talk to women about speaking. Are there times in their life where they weren't able to speak out? I see a lot of it with unprocessed trauma as well. So I'm a trauma therapist as well, and so looking back at different distressing memories that might have initiated the activation of the nervous system in a way that they weren't able to complete or speak or be able to move through the experience, so it gets stuck. So the nervous system actually gets impacted in that, and it perpetuates the...
Yeah, and it makes sense because down the road you're seeing the physical manifestation of it.
Right.
And they just happen to develop Hashimoto's or thyroiditis or something wrong with their thyroid, right? Or off with their thyroid, when really, for me, it's like, it's interesting. Every person who's came to me for thyroid, not for thyroid, but for emotional release, who has thyroid, all have issues with expression.
Yeah.
You couldn't believe how much energy is in their stomach and their chest moving up, and how small that bottleneck is.
Yeah.
It's like a pinhole, and like, oh, it's just coming out just a little bit. And I'm just trying, trying to guide them to, let's hear our voices more, breathe together. And it just doesn't come out, right? There's actually, what I tell them to do is sing.
That's beautiful. Singing, humming, anything that will help to stimulate the vagus nerve, because that helps to be able to calm the nervous system again and shift them into more of the parasympathetic system. But also, if so many women in our culture are in a state of stress prolonged, that creates so much inflammation in the body.
Yeah.
And when we can either produce stress hormones or sex hormones, we can't do that at the same time. And so until we can help to teach them how to regulate the nervous system and get that oriented, then they'll oftentimes see this starting to reappear, their desire for sex or the flutters in their body that the turn on.
Yeah. Would you say that it's less the aging for libido and more our mental state that is really tying down our libido?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so many women that I know who are in their 50s, 60s, even 70s who are having great sex and great orgasms. And they have told me it's because they've been able to release their self-consciousness. They're in a state in their lifestyle, they're not hustling. They're relaxed. They have a lot more peace in their life. They have a lot more peace with themselves. And they took this later chapter to really learn about who they are as sexual beings. And I think the culture for younger people now is there's so much pressure on this hustle culture, this go, go, go and do. And I do see more and more conversations that are being talked about mental health, trauma, inflammation. So I have hope that we're going to start shifting the culture in that way. But I don't know. We also are emphasizing a lot of this biohacking, which nothing against it. It's beautiful. But is that perpetuating a superhuman perspective or pressure on us? And these are just things that I think about. How are we continuing to pressure ourselves to be above and more?
But big time. And if I wasn't meditating or doing like any body, like scanning or just feeling my body, I would be my libido would be 0%. Like literally just battery dead.
Yeah.
You're right. There's so much of the mental go, and everyone I know is doing something and building something. And I'm like, wow, like great. I'm so inspired. And I'm like, but also like, what's our libido like as the collective, right? It's suffering too. We have an issue with climate crisis and the current state of our climate. I've been looking to offset my carbon footprint and didn't know where to start. I was actually presented Ren a long time ago by someone. I looked into it and I was really impressed because it's a startup and they're making it easy for everyone to make a meaningful difference in climate crisis. Ren's a website that focuses on monthly subscriptions where you can calculate your carbon footprint based on your lifestyle. It's really important and our responsibility to Earth to make sure that we're calculating just how much carbon we're using. And then it's offset by supporting awesome climate projects that plant trees, protect rainforests, and remove carbon dioxide from the sky. Their goal is to unlock collective action of millions of individuals to drive the systemic change needed to end climate crisis. So by signing up for Ren, it's an easy way to do something meaningful about the climate crisis, right? Ren practices hyper-transparency. Once you sign up, you get a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint. You'll receive monthly updates about tree planting, rainforest protection, whatever it is, carbon removal projects, whatever it is that you're funding. And you can see the exact coordinates of the trees that you're planting, giving back to Earth, the place that we're inhabiting and giving so much to us. It's going to take a lot of us, all of us, to end climate crisis, but do your part today. Sign up for Ren. Go to ren.co/heal-thyself, sign up, and they're going to plant 10 extra trees in your name. That's WREN.co/heal-thyself, and start making a difference. Thank you, Ren. So there's people listening, they're like, I'm in a relationship, and I want to better my sex life ASAP. And hey, partner, are you down? I'm down. So then what are some right off the bat tips to start bettering our sex life?
Okay, the very first thing that I want to pose, because I know so many people are going through COVID, so many people are going through COVID depression. There are different stages in your sexual evolution, I'll say sexual evolution, or just state of your sex life that we move through. And it's very important to validate where you are first before you can move out of that state. Because many of us might expect us to be in one place, like point B, but we're really at point A and we feel the frustration of not being at that place. But we've got to start here first. So these different stages, the first one is resting. So this is for whatever reason you're not having sex. That could be because you're consciously choosing celibacy, or you just haven't been dating, or you are asexual, or you don't want to, or maybe you went through a divorce and you're just going through that experience of like, not right now. That's important to honor where you're at and give yourself that space and be with whatever you need authentically before you can get to the others. The second stage is healing. Healing is going through the stage of, healing. So maybe we experienced trauma before, and now we're going through this healing process to resolve that trauma. Or maybe we just had a baby, and so postpartum, we're physically healing the body. Or maybe we are healing a heartbreak, and really taking the time to nourish ourselves in that. Then there's another stage of curiosity, and that's where we may be interested in something more. We may be researching, we may be listening to podcasts like this. We may be looking at YouTube videos of people who are doing bondage or power play or something. And adventure is the next stage. So curiosity and adventure kind of go along with each other because you're wanting something more. You may be trying out things. Maybe you're going to sex parties. Maybe you're just going to a sex shop. Maybe you're trying out different toys, different positions. And then the last stage is transcendence. And that's where you seek a meaning of sex that's beyond the physical and emotional aspect of it. So transcending, maybe you're wanting to experience God in sex or feel divine, or you want to go into Tantra or BDSM or something that transcends the image of what sex is. So if your partner is in adventure and you are in healing, that can be very frustrating. The person in an adventure may be like, come on with me, let's go. You never do this. You're a stick in the mud. You're a prude, you know? And the person in healing is like, I want to be there. Like, I want these things, but I can't, or there's a resistance and there's something's wrong with me. I'm broken. And then they get stuck in that, and it builds and it builds. The pressure builds. But then when they come to see me, I'm like, hold up. We're just in two different stages, so let's honor and validate that this is where we're at, and let's see how we can nourish both people in their individual places, and then we'll see as the person starts healing, they become more open. I've worked with women who struggle with painful sex or vaginismus, and they felt like they were broken because their partner's over here ready to go to sex parties or ready to go and try out kink, and having to help facilitate this healing with their vulva. And then they all of a sudden, once that was healed, they were like, oh, I feel great about this. Like, yeah, I'm a lot more relaxed about trying these different things out, because before they were looking through the lens of, if I go and do these things, I'm not going to be able to be what my partner needs, and so my partner's going to leave me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so giving that permission, getting real about where we are first is important. Then I would say, if you're in the space of curiosity, using third-party objects, books, podcasts, YouTube videos, articles, see what inspires you, see what you're interested in, see what you're drawn towards, and follow that.
Yeah.
So if one particular toy looks really interesting, and I always give this suggestion when people go to sex shops, because they're like, oh my God, there's just so many toys and there's so many things. Like, it's overwhelming. And I'm like, yeah, totally. And pick the ones that look really juicy to you, that look really interesting to you, because you're going to use that. You know, you're not going to use one that you got because it was on sale and it looks like, you know, my very first sex toy that I got, I think I was like 19, it looked like an alien sex probe. Like it was purple, translucent, little rabbit thing, and it goes, and it literally looked like an alien. I think I used it like once, you know, but I got it because I was like, oh, I need a sex toy. So it's important to create a relationship and go towards things that you're interested in, because that's going to create a feedback loop. You're interested in that, and that's going to draw you in more.
What if then, I'm thinking about the curiosity part. What if your curiosity is completely different than your partner's? What if your curiosity is tantric, for example, but your partner's curiosity is BDSM? Where is there a meeting ground for that?
Oh my God, I teach tantric BDSM.
Okay, well, there you go. There is such thing, tantric BDSM.
Yeah, and that's what I really want to emphasize. These things can stack. These things can blend.
Love that.
I don't believe that people are so far out there that they can't find a way. There just may be an exploration of, is somebody willing to explore with you is important? Or are they willing to listen to you at the dinner table as you get all excited about the Tantra and you're like, hi, I really want to do this. What about it? What about it interests you? Is there something, asking that partner, what about Tantra really interests you? Okay, and then tuning into yourself, what might I be open to trying with them? You know, even if it's not a full fuck yes, it can be, there is like an opening where I'm like, okay, I can negotiate that. I'm willing to try this breath thing that you're interested in. I'm not ready to, see each other as divine creatures of, the outer world and ethereal fairies, but I am interested in, or I'm open to that.
To breathing.
Sexual negotiation is a critical tool I think we all need to learn. I think negotiation in general in relationships, and that means that we're coming to an agreement. It's not that we're approaching this as a win-lose. We're approaching this as, how can we both find a place of agreement so that we're not self-sacrificing ourselves. Right. So your ideal may be different than mine, but there are steps we can take to find ourselves in the middle. And I like to break that up into three components there. So the first one is knowing what your ideal is. Yours is Tantra, mine is BDSM. Did you like that?
I love it.
Tantra, yeah, ethereal? Okay, great. So this is where we start. And then identifying what your boundary is. So how much are you willing to give, or what's your availability like? What's your limit? That, knowing that ahead of time, before you come into the conversation, will reduce the likelihood that you self-sacrifice. Many times people come into these conversations and they immediately give themselves up. But then that doesn't feel good, and they might hold a resentment for that. So, boundary. And then the last piece is the edge. And an edge is that point of negotiation. It might be uncomfortable, but it's not painful as if you sacrificed yourself. So I'm willing to lean into this. This is an edge for me. It's a little, like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, but I know that it's not a boundary. My boundary would be, I don't wanna do, 3-hour prayer session with, breathing and eye gazing. I'm not interested in that.
Right.
But an edge for me might be, let's talk about it at dinner. I bring in some of these ideas, and let's just talk about it. And I'm willing to listen and entertain your excitement around it.
Interesting. An edge for me might be, I'm down to tie you up, but I ain't down to get tied up.
Perfect.
Right?
Great. We can do this.
I love that. I love this.
How about at the dinner table, I tie you up, wait, you tie me up, and you tell me about Tantra?
Well, or I feed you really healthy homemade vegetables.
Perfect.
And then that's a turn on for me.
Great, but can we do something kinky with the vegetables?
It depends on how far we go, because my edge does not look good when I look at that eggplant. This is fun.
Yeah, see?
I really like
eggplant.
this.
Great.
I love it. No eggplants for me.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, now I understand edge, corner, each step of it. Everyone viewing and listening can now utilize these steps to have better communication. Yeah. Man, what I've been finding is communication, aside from sex, is so important. If you can authentically communicate what you need and say it in a way and in love, with that tone, with that, I love you, I see you for this. Can we maybe this?
Yeah.
Because people are so sensitive, including myself, right?
Yeah.
So especially in sex, any sex conversations with me, I'm just like tiptoeing because I don't feel super calm around them. There's a sensitivity. So I love those steps. It's so easy.
Yeah. And if we remember that we all have that worry around not being enough or not being a match for our partner, how that can change our lens and soften us as we go into these conversations. Mm-hmm. And again, leading the conversations with appreciation and the desire to expand each other and evolve each other as sexual beings can be helpful. But we all come into these relationships, with our own attachment wounds and our own upbringing and our own internal rules around, what could happen to us if I'm vulnerable and say what I actually want. So remembering that, reminding ourselves that as we come into this can be really helpful. So everybody put a time marker on this podcast, rewind, listen to that again, and then go and talk about it.
And then go and talk. There you go, write it out. You have all of the gems that we need to know. I mean, I'm masterfully done. You gave us so much information in the amount of time that we spoke, because like I said in the beginning of the show, sexual health is the most undernourished and taboo approach to our healing, but my God, it is fundamental.
Yeah.
When you think about health, sometimes, if not all the time, sex is right in the middle. And we're like, oh, I don't want to look at that one, but I'll go biohack this. Let me just get this $1,000 device. Instead, maybe I'll have better libido this way, instead of communicating with my partner what I need and being excited and authentically expressed around sex. Yeah. How do the viewers and listeners find you? Where do we find you? Give us all the goods and information about what's coming up for you.
Yeah, so they can go to sexloveyoga.com, and that's hosts everything that I do. Also Instagram at sexloveyoga. That's where I host my workshops, my retreats, my online programs, my podcast, Sex, Love, Psychedelics, and I work with ketamine-assisted therapy and how that can help us to connect with and heal our sexual challenges and connect deeper with our partner too. So I'm doing a lot more work on talking about sex and psychedelics.
I love that. That's the next one. That's the next podcast.
Yeah.
Strictly Sex and Psychedelics, the newfound frontier that you're stepping into, man. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah,
hey, look, thank you. Number 2, second go around. We're about to have a third in a few months. So thank you so much, Doc, for being here, for your wisdom, for what you're imparting on all of us, that we need this information. I really, really admire it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun.